I absolutely believe there's need not be a new Cold War, and I do not think there's any imminent attempt on the part of China to invade Taiwan.
The US is certain that China will not invade Taiwan, but let's listen to what Xi Jinping believes.
我们坚持以最大诚意，尽最大努力，争取和平统一的前景，但绝不承诺放弃使用武力，保留采取一切必要措施的选项。
Did you hear what he said? Let me repeat it for you. We will never promise to renounce the use of force, and we reserve the use of taking all measures necessary. When the US is unaware or certain that China will not invade Taiwan, imagine if they do. As we all know, foreboding fog blankets the Taiwan Strait, the thunder of artillery fire echoing across its 110-mile expanse. Will this be the first salvo of a dreaded Chinese invasion? Taiwan's fighters will scramble as Beijing's warships appear on the horizon. The battle for Taiwan's future is teetering on the edge of conflict. This long, simmering flashpoint suddenly feels explosive as Xi Jinping aggressively asserts China's claims over what it sees as a breakaway province. With Nancy Pelosi defiantly visiting Taiwan's capital despite threats, then Biden vowing military intervention against an invasion, has the game suddenly changed? China boasts an imposing military machine, the world's largest navy, over 2,500 fighter jets, and an arsenal of ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, little Taiwan has a mere 150,000 active troops, and a navy that's a fraction of China's fleet. Could they really resist the communist giant at their doorstep? Before analyzing what will happen if China invades Taiwan, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to not miss any imagine-if situations we go through. So, let's analyze China's playbook for invasion. A shock-and-awe opening barrage of missile strikes and bomber sorties obliterated Taiwan's defenses, and then waves of amphibious armadas surged across the strait protected by North Korean and Russian vessels. Over 1 million troops were likely required for a full-scale frontal assault. But where exactly to land them along Taiwan's heavily fortified west coast? Just 14 viable beaches for hosting an invasion force, and that vulnerable landing craft must churn through heavy seas for over 100 miles, dodging coastal missile batteries secreted along the entire route. China could opt for more stealthy surprise amphibious raiding operations across different fronts instead of one D-Day-style beach landing, or unleash paratrooper brigades deep behind enemy lines to sow chaos. Whatever the strategy, Chinese troops would then face the hellish prospect of room-to-room urban warfare battling through Taiwan's cities, against a deeply dug-in and motivated enemy fighting for their homeland. And all with the ominous specter of sudden US intervention if the campaign bogs down, which could ultimately doom any Chinese lodgment. Taiwan has been bracing for this moment for over 70 long years. Sprawling underground command bunkers burrow into mountainsides, artfully masked under lush jungle canopies. Camouflaged missile sites resembling innocuous farming warehouses dot the countryside. A substantial reservist force of nearly 3 million can rapidly reinforce defending units, forearmed by Ukraine's stirring example of citizen armies prevailing over Russian numerical advantages. The resistance starts in the very seas themselves. Mobile coastal missile batteries, secreting truck-mounted Harpoon and Xiongfeng anti-ship missiles, stand ready to hammer any invading armada. Could these layered defenses repel Xi's worst? Can Taiwan's missiles dash China's dreams of conquest and reunification? We peel back the curtain on the uneasy next chapter of this conflict, as both sides solemnly brace for a potential fight to determine the island's fate. But first, let's find out what Biden, the current US president, thinks, if China will invade Taiwan or not. But imagine if China invades Taiwan. With indecision paralyzing Washington, a wavering America may attempt half measures, rushing advanced missiles and weapons to Taipei to bog down China's assault without direct intervention. European allies face the same grim calculus of risk as Taiwan's dreams of independence drown in the Strait's waters. But Japan may emerge as the unexpected hero, permitting US bases on its soil to serve as launch pads for strikes on invading Chinese fleets, despite the risk of fierce retaliation from Beijing. Already Chinese and Japanese fighters play games of chicken in East China Sea scrambles. As Taiwan burns, lines are drawn across the entire Pacific. A dismayed ASEAN bloc in Southeast Asia fears being forced to take sides as China presses its claims deeper into their backyard. Even South Korea and Australia debate abandoning neutrality to aid an imperiled ally. Yet with war often fueled by miscalculation, eventually a hot-headed pilot or rogue sub-commander on either side pulls a trigger that can't be unpulled. Missiles launch, shots traded. A cascade of escalating reprisals swiftly mounts into global nuclear brinkmanship. World stock markets plunge as Taiwan's torn battleground signals the start of Cold War 2.0, leaving global supply chains in tatters. The island's semiconductor champions find themselves on the front line as China blockades microchip exports. Car factories shutter from Detroit to Dusseldorf as just-in-time manufacturing gets choked off. Despite China ultimately invading and occupying Taiwan after savage urban warfare, this economic mutually assured destruction means no winners emerge from the rubble. With Taiwan's farms and infrastructure left broken by months of bombardment, food insecurity grips East Asia in the conflict's aftermath. And a profoundly traumatized Taiwan simmers, with citizens whispering revenge and biding their time for another day. Bloody insurgency lurks around every corner, no matter how many Beijing-friendly politicians are installed. The island's soul, once renowned for vibrance and technology, is now steeped in grievance and loss even under a drab new communist bureaucracy. The rest of the stunned world licks its wounds, and America's standing diminishes. Resource-rich Australia sleeps less soundly, and the American century passes into the setting sun, not with a bang, but a series of missteps that ends with burning Taipei sunsets flickering on Washington monuments. As the last plumes of smoke clear over a battered Taiwan, the island's once pristine landscape lies ravaged with appalling environmental consequences. Scorched earth tactics have burned towering forests to ash, while oil spills bleed into the Taiwan Strait from sunken fuel tankers. Taiwan's high-tech manufacturing belts now lie in ruins, as foundries central to producing the world's microchips are reduced to mangled scraps. Entire migrant worker communities that enabled Taiwan's industrial rise were displaced, with climate refugees fleeing this now uninhabitable war zone. Yet, it's the human trauma inflicting the deepest scars. Beyond the staggering immediate loss of life, Taiwan's spirit is left profoundly shaken to its core. This vibrant democracy that once awed visitors with its 24-hour kinetic chaos of scooters, night markets, and skyscraper-strewn metropolises will never be the same. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is how this bloodshed could have easily been averted if cooler heads prevailed over inflammatory rhetoric. Historians may pinpoint the fatal tipping point when bellicosity triumphed over pragmatism, inflaming public passions instead of seeking common ground. Yet even amid darkness, hope flickers. Just before the Cuban Missile Crisis nearly triggered nuclear Armageddon, JFK professed, "We all inhabit this small planet. We all cherish our children's future." Kennedy's timeless words resonate today. In praying wiser voices diffuse this Taiwan crisis. Alternatives to tragedy always exist when imagination bests fatalism or cynicism. By appealing to universal parental hopes of bequeathing children peace, not conflict, conscience can prevail over historical cycles of violence. The choice lies in our hands to author a new script elevated by shared ideals, not darkened by deepest fears. Over Taiwan and every contested frontier, we must summon the courage to seek the light,